What movie, not your own, do you think you have watched the most?
Lawrence of Arabia. I've probably watched that movie more than any other film.
Spielberg is more than a director. He's a storyteller who defined what blockbuster filmmaking looks like. From Jaws to Schindler's List, E.T. to Saving Private Ryan, his movies have shaped generations. But even the greatest storytellers are shaped by stories themselves. Now at 78, Spielberg has reflected on the 5 films that most influenced him. Not just as a filmmaker, but as a person. These aren't just technical masterpieces or box office giants, they're personal. Each one unlocked something in Spielberg's heart or mind, teaching him what movies can truly do. In interviews, speeches, and tributes over the decades, Spielberg has returned to these films time and time again, quoting their lessons, admiring their craftsmanship, and honoring their creators. And now, we're counting them down, from number 5 all the way to the film that first sparked his dream of making movies. This is more than a top 5 list. It's a journey into Number 5, E.T. the Extraterrestrial, 1982, the film that made me believe in magic. It might surprise you that Steven Spielberg includes one of his own movies in his list of favorites. But E.T. the Extraterrestrial isn't just a film he directed, it's a piece of his heart. And for Spielberg, E.T. stands apart from the rest of his career. It's personal, it's emotional, and even decades after its release, he still sees it as something magical. Spielberg has called E.T. a pretty perfect movie. And for someone as self-critical as he is, that's saying a lot. He rarely rewatches his own work. He often says that once a film is done, it's no longer his. It belongs to the audience. But E.T. is the one exception. It's the only movie of his that he's returned to again and again over the years, especially to share with his own children. That tells you everything. The story of E.T., a lonely boy who finds a lost alien and forms a deep, wordless bond, mirrors Spielberg's own feelings of childhood isolation. His parents had divorced not long before he made the film, and much of E.T. comes from that emotional place. Elliot's sense of being misunderstood, his connection to a gentle creature from another world, his longing for something bigger. These were all deeply felt by Spielberg at the time. He once said that E.T. was about what it means to say goodbye, and that theme of parting, of loss and love, is woven into the DNA of the film. You can feel it in the way the light glows from E.T.'s heart, in the way the music swells when the bikes rise into the air, in the way Elliot whispers, "I'll be right here." The emotional resonance of the film is one reason it continues to touch audiences of all ages. But technically, it's also a masterclass. Spielberg's control of tone, his ability to blend fantasy with deeply human moments, and his partnership with John Williams on that iconic score. It's the kind of filmmaking that doesn't just entertain, it connects.
Towards the heart, and which you will see beating. The intestines will be going through their peristaltic action.
Spielberg often speaks about the power of wonder, that awestruck feeling you get when something larger than life enters your world. E.T. captures that perfectly. It reminds us what it felt like to be a kid who believed in magic. It tells us that friendship doesn't need language, and that saying goodbye doesn't mean love disappears. And when Spielberg rewatches E.T., he's not just revisiting a film, he's stepping back into that vulnerable, hopeful version of himself. The one who wanted to believe that connection could cross galaxies. The one who still believes stories could heal. There's also something else Spielberg admires about E.T. Its simplicity. It's not a spectacle-heavy blockbuster. It's a small, intimate story with big emotional reach. Spielberg has said he loves how the film relies on feeling more than flash. There are no villains, no epic battles, just a boy, an alien, and the unspoken bond they share. And that's what makes it timeless. So yes, Spielberg placed one of his own films on this list. And not out of ego, but out of gratitude. E.T. reminded him what kind of filmmaker he wanted to be. Not just a master technician, but a storyteller who makes people feel. As he once said, E.T. is the closest I've come to pure filmmaking. For Spielberg, it was a rare moment where all the pieces, the story, the cast, the music, the mood, came together in harmony. And it's the film that continues to remind him, even now, why he picked up a camera in the first place. Number 4. It's a Wonderful Life, 1946.
Mary, I know what I'm gonna do tomorrow and the next day and next year and a year after that. I'm shaking the dust of this crummy little town off my feet and I'm gonna see the world.
The movie that reminds me why stories matter. On the surface, It's a Wonderful Life might seem like an odd pick for the guy who gave us dinosaurs, aliens, and pulse-pounding thrillers. But for Steven Spielberg, Frank Capra's holiday classic is far more than just a Christmas movie. It's a moral compass, a gentle, glowing reminder of why storytelling matters in the first place, to connect us, to inspire us, and to help us hold on to hope when life gets dark. Spielberg has long praised It's a Wonderful Life for its message of universal worth. It shows that every human being on this earth matters, he once said. Every moment that reminds us that doing good, even quietly, ripples out in ways we don't always see. Spielberg admires how Capra balances sentiment without slipping into sugar. It's a Wonderful Life doesn't shy away from pain. George Bailey suffers. He doubts himself. He even wishes he'd never been born. But by taking him to the edge of despair, Capra earns every ounce of the joy that follows. That emotional honesty is something Spielberg carried into his own work. Whether it's the despair of Schindler's List or the redemptive arc of Catch Me If You Can, he knows the power of letting a story walk through darkness before reaching light. And then there's the craft. Spielberg has always respected Capra's storytelling discipline, the way he builds scenes slowly, lets characters breathe, and uses small-town details to build a universal message. He once noted how Capra's framing and camera work, while simple, always serve the emotion. There's no show-off style, just sincere, confident filmmaking. It's something Spielberg tries to emulate, never distracting the audience from the soul of the story. You can feel Capra's influence in Close Encounters, where the ordinary becomes extraordinary, and in Saving Private Ryan, where sacrifice, honor, and the ripple effects of human choices lie at the center. Even in Spielberg's lighter films, the spirit of It's a Wonderful Life is there, an unwavering belief that goodness exists, even if it's hidden under layers of fear or cynicism. Spielberg has also said that what moved him most was how the film reminds us of our impact, how the smallest kindness can change someone's world.
Daddy, teacher says every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings.
That's right. That's right.
In It's a Wonderful Life, George Bailey doesn't save the world. He saves his town. He keeps a bank open, he helps his brother, he raises a family. That's it. No spaceships, no explosions, just integrity. And for Spielberg, that's heroism. So while Capra may not have made blockbusters, he helped define what a human story looks like, and why those are the ones that last. Spielberg doesn't just admire It's a Wonderful Life for its craft or sentiment. He treasures it because it represents the kind of filmmaker he tries to be. One who believes that stories can lift people up. It's not about flashy endings or massive stakes. It's about that quiet, profound idea. You matter more than you know. That's what Capra gave us. And that's what Spielberg carries forward frame by frame. Number 3, The Searchers, 1956. The film that taught me how to paint with a camera.
Debbie?
Und mehr.
Debbie? Debbie, don't you remember? I'm Martin, your brother. Remember? Debbie, remember back.
Steven Spielberg first saw The Searchers when he was just 9 years old. He snuck into the theater, too young, too curious, and left completely changed. The vast landscapes, the haunting music, the emotional complexity of John Wayne's character. It all sank deep into his young imagination. He didn't fully understand the story, but he knew it mattered. It was his first encounter with the kind of visual storytelling that would later become his trademark. Directed by the legendary John Ford, The Searchers is often called the greatest Western ever made. But for Spielberg, it's more than a genre piece. It's a masterclass in cinematic composition, pacing, and emotional depth. It taught him that movies could be grand and intimate, that the same film could give you sweeping canyon shots and quiet, devastating close-ups. In many ways, this film showed Spielberg what directing could be. He once said of Ford, "He's like a classic painter. He celebrates the frame, not just what happens inside it." That idea stuck with him. Spielberg learned that framing isn't just about camera placement, it's about emotion. Where you put the audience, what you let them see, and when you reveal it, that's storytelling. And Ford did it with a quiet power that Spielberg has emulated ever since. One of the most famous shots in The Searchers is John Wayne standing in a doorway, silhouette against the harsh desert outside. That shot appears, in spirit, in many Spielberg films, especially E.T., when Elliot is framed against the light of the spaceship. Spielberg has said that moment in The Searchers stuck with him for decades. It symbolized isolation, transition, and the idea of never truly belonging. Themes he'd explore again and again in his own stories. But The Searchers wasn't just visually influential. Its narrative, about a man consumed by obsession on a years-long quest to find his kidnapped niece, is morally complicated. Wayne's character, Ethan Edwards, isn't a traditional hero. He's angry, racist, and broken, yet the film never lets you look away. Spielberg was drawn to that complexity. He realized that a character didn't have to be likable to be compelling. That revelation would later shape his portrayals of men like Captain Miller in Saving Private Ryan, or Oskar Schindler, characters with flaws, but enormous depth. In fact, Spielberg has said he rewatches The Searchers before directing a new film. Not out of nostalgia, but out of respect. It reminds him to slow down, to think about every angle, every frame, every moment of light and shadow.
Don't call me uncle. I ain't your uncle.
Yes, sir.
John Ford didn't shoot coverage, he shot meaning. And Spielberg, for all his technical wizardry, never forgets that the frame must serve the feeling. There's also something deeply emotional in The Searchers that resonates with Spielberg's themes, the idea of home. Ethan spends the film looking for his niece, but he's really searching for a way back to himself, to a family, to belonging, to peace. But in the end, he stands in that doorway and walks away. He can't enter. He can't stay. Spielberg has returned to that feeling in countless films. People on the outside trying to find a place to belong. So why is The Searchers number 3 on his list? Because it was his awakening. It was the moment he understood what movies could do. Not just tell a story, but create a world so emotionally rich, it stays with you forever. For Spielberg, John Ford's desert isn't just a backdrop. It's a canvas, and it taught him how to paint. Not with brushes, but with light, space, and soul. Number 2, The Godfather, 1972. The movie that redefined American cinema. When Steven Spielberg talks about The Godfather, it's not just with admiration, it's with awe. It tells you just how deeply this movie affected him. Directed by Francis Ford Coppola, The Godfather was more than just a film. It was a cultural earthquake. Released in 1972, it changed the way movies were made, marketed, and remembered. For Spielberg, who was just breaking into Hollywood at the time, it raised the bar so high he knew he'd have to climb like hell just to keep up. But Spielberg never saw Coppola as competition. He saw him as a fellow artist, and The Godfather as a masterpiece that opened new creative doors. What stunned Spielberg wasn't just the storytelling or the performances, it was the boldness. Coppola told a dark, sprawling Shakespearean saga, and audiences embraced it. This was a film that dared to make the villain the protagonist and made you care. Spielberg has pointed out how The Godfather managed to be personal and mythic at once.
They want to get mixed up in the family business? You gotta get up close like this, bada bing, you blow their brains all over your nice Ivy League suit.
The rise and fall of Michael Corleone isn't just a gangster story. It's a tragedy of identity, power, and moral collapse. That kind of character journey, so layered and nuanced, is what Spielberg has chased in his own way throughout his career. Whether it's Oskar Schindler's transformation or Tom Hanks' slow unraveling in Bridge of Spies, that influence runs deep. Visually, The Godfather also blew Spielberg away. He's praised Gordon Willis's cinematography, those deep shadows, the dimly lit interiors, the almost painterly tableaus. It taught him that style can carry subtext. That light and darkness on screen can echo what's happening inside the characters. Spielberg, who's famous for his own use of lighting and silhouette, took that lesson to heart. But the impact of The Godfather wasn't just technical, it was emotional. Spielberg once said that watching Coppola's film gave him a new understanding of ambition. It wasn't enough to make a good movie. You had to make something that resonated, something that mattered, something that felt like it was etched into the culture. The Godfather wasn't just popular, it became part of the American psyche. At the AFI Life Achievement Awards ceremony honoring Coppola, Spielberg made it clear this wasn't just a great film, it was the film. It redefined the canon of American film, he said, and he meant it. In a single work, Coppola had blended art house craft with commercial success. It was everything a young Spielberg hoped to achieve, and it lit a fire in him to aim higher. There's also a deep respect in Spielberg for how The Godfather balances family and fate. The Corleone clan, for all their crimes, are bound by blood and loyalty. Themes Spielberg explores time and again, from the broken family in War of the Worlds to the brothers in Saving Private Ryan. He's always been fascinated by what holds families together and what tears them apart. Ultimately, The Godfather showed Spielberg that film could be epic without losing intimacy, that you could build a vast world filled with danger and power and still make it feel personal and true. It's a masterwork he returns to often, not just as a fan, but as a student. For Spielberg, The Godfather isn't just Coppola's triumph. It's a symbol of what American cinema can achieve at its absolute peak. Bold storytelling, unforgettable characters, and the courage to go deeper than anyone expects. Number 1. Lawrence of Arabia, 1962. The film that changed everything. For Steven Spielberg, Lawrence of Arabia isn't just a favorite movie. It's the reason he became a filmmaker. He said it plainly, Lawrence of Arabia was the film that set me on my journey. That journey would lead him to become one of the most iconic directors of all time. But it started, quite literally, in a dark theater, watching the sands of the Arabian desert stretch endlessly across the screen. David Lean, Lawrence of Arabia is the definition of cinematic scope. It's epic in every sense. Massive locations, complex characters, monumental themes. But for Spielberg, it wasn't just the size of the film that hit him. It was the precision, the composition, the flow, the sheer control Lean had over every frame. It just uplifted me, Spielberg once said. Even the smallest details provoke me to want to know how movies are made. That feeling, that deep curiosity, would become Spielberg's fuel. He watched Lawrence of Arabia over and over, trying to unlock its secrets. He studied how Lean balanced intimacy and scale, how he used music, silence, light, shadow, movement. The desert wasn't just a backdrop, it was a character, a force, a mirror for T.E. Lawrence's inner turmoil. And Spielberg was captivated. The influence of this film on Spielberg's work is unmistakable. You can see echoes of it in the sweeping battle scenes of Saving Private Ryan, in the lonely vastness of Empire of the Sun, in the adventure and spectacle of Indiana Jones. Spielberg didn't copy Lean. How to use stillness to make the next burst of action feel seismic. What really moves Spielberg, though?
The man who gives victory in battle is prized beyond every other man.
It's from Lean's film. He admired how Lean would let a character enter the frame slowly instead of starting with them in the middle. That sense of patience, but perhaps the most lasting influence is emotional. Lawrence of Arabia made Spielberg feel something he couldn't explain. And that's exactly what he tries to give audiences in return. Whether it's a boy flying on a bike across the moon, or a soldier weeping on a Normandy beach, it's a piece of the filmmaker he became. Visionary, emotional, curious, and bold. These 5 movies didn't just influence his career, they lit the path he still walks today. So if you love Spielberg's work, now you know where it began. Thanks for watching. And if you enjoyed this journey through cinema history, make sure to subscribe for more stories that celebrate the legends behind the lens. More epic breakdowns are coming soon. because like Spielberg says, he's just dreaming for a living.